Good evening, Cambridge. I'm extremely happy to see you all here
I've
tonight.
had it with my moderate to severe plaque
8:30,
psoriasis.
me,
The frustration, covering up. So I talked with my doctor.
I'm sorry.
He prescribed.
I'm sorry. Technical issues as usual, but I am extremely happy to see you all tonight. It's 8:30, CCTV Channel 9. It's Good Evening, Cambridge. We are, for a little bit, we moved to another studio, so that's why I'm here, like with this cool light and flowers and this cool mic. But let's be serious today, because I am continuing talking about the presidential candidates 2016. Last week we get familiar with Mike Huckabee, Bobby Jindal, and John Kasich, and today I will continue to introduce you to the list of presidential candidates 2016. So in general, there is 5 Democrats and 17 Republicans who have announced that they are running for the presidency in 2016, and I'm just like taking them in order, in alphabetic order. Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. I'm just gonna, everybody's fair, and I'm trying to tell you only facts to be. I'm trying to be ethic, and I'm trying to be, let's say, treat them equal. So facts only. I will not tell my opinion or something like that. Okay, so let's start today from George Elmer Pataki. He was born on June 24th, 1945. I don't know why it's important, but I will tell you. So he's an American lawyer and a politician who served as the 53rd governor of New York since 1995 to 2006. I'm sorry, just give me 1 second. Oh my God. What? Okay. Finally. I'm just getting used to the the equipment here. So I'll start over. George Pataki is an American lawyer and a politician who served as the 53rd governor of New York. Putaki has been an environment lawyer and run his own business development firm focused on clean energy. He also spent some time helping run Revere America, an anti-Obamacare organization. Putaki's record as governor of Deep Blue New York puts him closer towards the moderate part of the conservative spectrum. He has finished Yale University. His major was history, and Columbia Law School, where he got his GED. I found a video for you, so please take a look on a monitor.
Debate saw all 7 candidates put aside the banter and mostly stick to the issues. George Pataki saying he delivered in a blue state as governor of New York and can do the same in the White House. Governor Pataki joins us right now. Governor, good to have you on the program. Welcome.
Hey, good morning, Maria. Nice being on with you.
Congratulations to you, fresh off of your debate on Thursday. What was your takeaway from the debate?
Thank you. First, I'm very pleased that for the first time the American people got to hear from me, and the reaction I've gotten is very good. And I think all in all, most of the candidates did very well. But I kept asking myself, they have ideas, how are they going to get it done? And you started out, Maria, I got it done in a blue state. I got it done with a 2-to-1 Democratic House. And it seems to me, regardless of who controls Congress, nothing seems to change. I can change things in Washington, and that's what the American people want.
So let's talk about what needs to be changed and the real important issues to American voters today. Jobs, the economy, front and center, race. When you look at the economy and race, these are the 2 issues that are resonating across the country, as well as, of course, foreign policy. What are your solutions to creating jobs, Governor?
Well, Maria, I think you're right. It's about jobs and it's about protecting the American people in a dangerous world. On jobs, we have to throw out a corrupt tax code and lower the tax burden. The rich and powerful have all these exemptions and loopholes and credits. They have got to go, and we have to lower the taxes on working Americans. I know I can do that. When I was governor with a Democratic House, I reduced taxes by more than the other 49 states combined. And the second thing we have to do is protect Americans. Just as one example, we do not bow down to radical Islam anywhere. Our Marines shouldn't be taking off their uniforms. They should be putting on their guns. And we have to be proactive to protect us against ISIS. You know, Maria, I was governor on September 11th. I saw the horror of radical Islam firsthand. I'm not going to sit back and be passive when this threat continues to grow.
So I want to get back to the economy in a moment, but we're on foreign policy right now. Let's stay there. What are the solutions to defeating ISIS then?
Well, there's two solutions. First of all, do not let them to have access to any media here in America. The idea that they are recruiting other Americans to engage in violent jihad is just criminal, and it's not protected speech. They are yelling fire in a crowded theater. That's not protected by the First Amendment. Shut down their access to Twitter. Shut down any radical Islamists trying to engage in jihad so that we can protect Americans here. But then, in the Middle East, ISIS has recruiting centers, training centers, Western citizens with passports, sophisticated weapons and social media. We have got to empower our allies on the ground, the Kurds in Iraq, the Sunni in Iraq, not by sending weapons through Baghdad, but by arming, training, and supporting them directly. That's step number one. And then, if need be, we have got to send in special operations to destroy those training centers, destroy those recruiting centers over there. No 10-year war, no nation building. Destroy their ability to attack us here over there so that we can be safe at home.
Yeah, one interesting note, while the debate was going on Thursday, Chuck Schumer comes out and says that he will vote no on the Iran deal. What was your observation on that? And do you think Congress will have a shot in reversing this?
The Iran deal is an abomination. Calling it a deal implies the United States got something. It seems to me that the #1 sponsor of terror, Iran, got everything. Forget about the nuclear weapons for a minute, which we can never do, but they will have $150 billion to continue to support their terrorist activities, not just in the Middle East, but around the world. Their #1 terrorist commander flies to meet with Putin. It's not to buy caviar. It's to buy missiles. It's to buy weapons. It's to buy weapons of terror to be used against America and our allies. I hope Congress votes this down, but if they don't, I can tell you, Maria, day one, I will do everything in my power to make sure Iran never has a nuclear weapon, period.
That's certainly resonating with the American people because people are afraid. They don't know what this means, that Iran is now going to be seeing all this money, $150 billion, once the sanctions are lifted. Let me get back to another issue that is certainly resonating with the American people, and that is wages, Governor. Wages have not moved in about 7 or 8 years. We continue to see the most recent jobs report on Friday show that wages were up 0.2% year over year. What is it going to take to actually move wages and have the average family out there actually feeling the impact of an economic recovery? Because they haven't felt it yet.
Absolutely, Maria. The biggest single impediment to a stronger economy is the federal government. I'll give you one example, Obamacare. How many millions, somewhere between 6 and 8 million Americans are working part-time who want to be working full-time because their employer doesn't want to come under Obamacare? We need better jobs. Our taxes on corporations are the highest in the developed world. I would lower that rate. And by the way, on manufacturing, Maria, we can make things in America. We have got to make things in America again. I would have the lowest taxes on manufacturers anywhere in the developed world. Let's have factories here, good paying jobs. You know, my 4 grandparents came here and worked in a factory. During college, over vacations, I worked in a factory. These are great jobs. We have a great workforce, entrepreneurs, venture capital. What we don't have is a government regulatory and tax climate that allows corporations to build factories here and compete. I will change that, and we will make things and have great jobs in America again. And by the way, Maria,
yep.
By the way, when I left as governor, we had the lowest unemployment rate in New York State since they started keeping records. We had over $24 billion in private sector investment in factories in upstate New York to make computer chips. we can do that in America.
Yeah, you know what? You've got some answers to some real solid questions and issues that America cares about. Let me just ask you about the money movement here, because on the debate stage, the second debate, you know, it was interesting to see that Donald Trump had given money to so many of the people on that stage. He also has given money to you and to the George Pataki campaign. How do you jive, you know, with that? The fact that he's given to Hillary, he's given to Nancy Pelosi, he's given to a lot of people, he's even given to you, Governor.
Well, he always said I was a great governor until I started attacking him. But what was appalling, among many of his other appalling comments about Megyn Kelly, about Mexicans, about our veterans, was how he was doing it to buy politicians. That's not a person we need as president. And Megan, Maria, I have to tell you, I was appalled at that debate that so few of my fellow running mates or candidates were willing to take on Donald Trump and say he is not qualified to be president of the United States. If you're not willing to stand up to Donald Trump, if you're afraid of him, how are you going to stand up to Putin or Ayatollah Khamenei? I asked them to denounce Donald Trump's candidacy. It is hurting the party and hurting our country.
All right, Governor, we'll be watching the developments. Good to have you on the program this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
We're back. Next on my list is Rand Paul. Randall Howard Rand Paul is an American politician and physician. Paul has been a senator from Kentucky since 2011. After Tea Party support helped him upset an establishment party favorite Republican in the primary. The son of the former presidential candidate, former Republican Ron Paul, R. Texas, Paul already has a solid base of libertarian support. He was cheered by conservative in 2013 for his 13-hour filibuster of now CIA Director John Brennan's nomination, motivated by President Obama's dawn strike policy. Paul has campaigned on trying to kill the tax code, preferring dramatically simpler and lower taxes. He did not finish Baylor University and got his MD. He became an MD from Duke University School of Medicine. On a monitor, I think all this time I was mute. I'm sorry guys, something wrong with me today. I was talking about Rand Paul, that he's an American politician and physician, that he did not finish at Baylor University, but got his MD degree from Duke University School of Medicine. Paul has been a senator from Kentucky since 2011, after Tea Party support helped him upset an establishment party favorite Republican in the primary. The son of the former presidential candidate, former Republican Ron Paul, R. Texas, Paul already has a solid base of libertarian support. He was cheered by conservative in 2013 for his 13-hour filibuster of now CIA Director John Brennan's nomination, motivated by President Obama's drone strike policy. Paul has campaigned on trying to kill the tax code, preferring dramatically simpler and lower taxes. Please take a look at a monitor. I would like to show you a video about Rand Paul. Here you go.
Our swing state is a huge player in the 2016 presidential race, and we're connecting Colorado to the candidates. On today's show, Republican Rand Paul. The junior senator from Kentucky is an outspoken critic of government surveillance and military intervention. His father, Ron Paul, ran for president last cycle, and like his father, Rand Paul is seen as representing a healthy chunk of libertarian-minded Republicans. He came into Colorado this past week hot on the heels of the Supreme Court ruling that legalized marriage for gay people, and Paul made headlines for holding a fundraiser here with the marijuana industry. Rand Paul, thank you so much for being on the show. We appreciate it. Glad to be with you. So, most people running for president figure they're going to come to Colorado and get a marijuana question. You're obviously making some headlines by being a little more friendly than the average GOP candidate. So, talk to me a little bit about why we're hearing your name in connection to marijuana fundraisers.
Well, I'm a big believer in states' rights. I'm a big believer that when the majority in a state create laws, that the federal government ought to leave them alone, and really the federal government shouldn't interfere with states.
Yeah, our local audience here is pretty familiar with what it looks like to have retail marijuana in their neighborhood. Do you support legalization nationwide? Do you support allowing states to do what Colorado has done, or neither?
I've spent most of my time talking about decriminalization. That means taking the penalties to a more proportionate level. I think that putting someone in jail for 55 years for marijuana is ridiculous. Weldon Angelos is in jail for 55 years. There's a gentleman in Missouri in jail for life. There's a guy with 2 life sentences for LSD in Nevada. So it isn't about approval or disapproval of drugs. It's about whether or not it's a reasonable penalty to be putting people in jail for decades. I object to taking away the discretion of judges to try to find justice. A lot of kids make mistakes, and a lot of people in political office made mistakes when they were kids. Should we give people a second chance? I believe in second chances.
Well, do you support I mean, you said you're for states' rights. Do you support, if you were President Paul, do you support allowing Colorado to go forward with what it has, or would you use federal powers against the system that we have?
Yeah, I wouldn't interfere from the federal level.
All right, good enough. I read your op-ed on the Supreme Court's marriage ruling. I want to make sure I've got it right. You're unhappy with the ruling. You think marriage is between a man and a woman, but you argue the government shouldn't be involved in marriage anyway. Maybe now it's a good time to think about getting government out of it. Is that fair?
Seems pretty clear.
Okay. So do you think it's a bit insulting to gay people to say, now that the Supreme Court has handed you this right that everyone else has, all the straight people have, now we want you out of the club, now we want to shut the club down because you're in it?
No, it's always been my opinion, and I think we have to learn to live with each other. And what's difficult is that when we have a representative democracy, we have 81% of the people in Alabama believe in traditional marriage. And so are we going to say that they can't sort of have their own definition? One way to have your own definition is to privatize it, where each church has their own definition of marriage, and it is an insult to anybody. It just says, is this something that the federal government needs to be involved with? We never really ever had the federal government involved before. Our founding fathers didn't go to Washington to have approval or disapproval or defining moments or definition of marriage. It was always done locally, and I think it ought to be a local issue.
So Republican voters who are looking for someone to push back actively and get it back to traditional marriage, as they might call it, that's not really where you'd like to take things. You'd like to take it to more of a hands-off approach.
I think the best way for people to get along is to not force your opinion on another. And so what ends up happening is that people will agree to disagree on the issue.
All right. Bobby Jindal got some attention for floating the idea of getting rid of the Supreme Court. Mike Huckabee called for term limits for the justices on the Supreme Court. I know you just talked about term limits for Congress. How do you feel about the idea of term limits for the court, or some sort of voter referendum on it?
The proposals that I put forward have been term limits for Congress. I think it'd be a good idea to term limit Congress. We reelect like 96% of our incumbents, and I think it'd be a good idea to have more turnover in office. I've met the men and women up there, and by no means is there a monopoly of knowledge in Washington. I think there are a lot of good people. I was never in politics before this. I'm a physician. I'm not a career politician. And people said, oh, how can you run from your first office being the Senate? And I really think that brings some fresh blood to the Senate and also to Congress. So I think it'd be a good idea to have term limits.
So that you're not interested in restructuring the U.S. Supreme Court?
I have not proposed that.
Okay. We'll talk a little bit about Cliven Bundy. While you were in Nevada, according to the AP, you spent about 45 minutes with rancher Cliven Bundy. Well, did you meet with him?
He came to one of our rallies.
Okay. And do you feel like he's going the right direction as far as federal land is concerned?
I don't know what direction he's going in. He was just somebody that showed up at one of our rallies. I think that he's actually expressed that he disagrees with me on land policy. I think that there should be legislation passed where federal management of the land goes back to the states. And my understanding is he disagrees with me on that. But, yeah, he showed up at a rally.
Okay. No one-on-one meeting with him?
Yeah, we saw him one-on-one.
In a crowded room? You didn't go to a separate place?
We saw him and met with him, yeah.
Okay.
He came up, said hello, and we said hello, and we talked, and we chatted about land management for a while. But, my idea really is that federal control of the land has gone too far, and that the masters are too distant from us, and they don't understand sort of local concerns, because there always has to be sort of a balance between jobs and the environment, jobs and animals. I mean, there always has to be a little more common sense put into this, and I think we lose that when we let the control get too distant.
Well, my question was going to be...
I will continue my conversation about the third candidate I want to talk to you today about. His name is Rick Perry. James Richard Perry served as a governor of Texas for 14 years until he decided against running for re-election once again. He will have to overcome the ghost of his failed 2012 campaign, in which he shot up to the top of the field before falling even faster after committing a series of gaffes. Perry built a strong economic record in Texas and has long been a proponent of giving federal powers back to the states. Perry can claim to be more familiar with immigration than most of the other candidates, having governed a state with more than 1,000 miles of Mexican border. Let's see a video, which one I found for you. It's loading. Oof. Here you go.
When a nation comes together
Hello,
to
this is
help a city
commercial. I
recover,
hate commercials on
and Goldman
YouTube,
Sachs
please.
joins the effort to help, a community.
Already, it's ready.
All right, GOP presidential candidate and former Texas Governor Rick Perry is one of the 17 Republican presidential contenders. Despite a high-profile run in 2016, he's so far struggling to break out of the pack this time. The cash-strapped campaign is hoping for a turnaround in key states. Governor Perry joins us now. Governor, good to see you, as always.
Howdy, how are you?
I'm very good. I want to start by asking you your thoughts on what we're seeing play out in Texas, what appears to be ambush execution style of Deputy Goforth as he was simply gassing up his patrol car.
Yeah, obviously our hearts go out to this family. Anytime a individual who is there to protect us loses their life, it's a great tragedy, and this obviously I think even complicated more from the sense of having a family and children. And anyway, our hearts go out with them. You know, yesterday I made the observation that this country and the institutions that have made America great through the years, and particularly over the last 2 centuries, our synagogues and our churches have been the place where right and wrong has been taught to a huge number of our population. And as we see those institutions being attacked, when we see religious freedom being attacked in this country, it really brings to the forefront that the places where right and wrong have historically been trained into our people are being pushed out of the public arena. And the point that I made yesterday was, if we lose those great institutions, we can't hire enough police officers to keep us safe.
Yeah, you were part of the We Stand With God rally yesterday in South Carolina. I know some of your, couple of your fellow candidates and others were there as well. How do you respond to those who say in 2015 you can't really run on issues of faith or religion that turn some people off, or social issues, and it's just not something that's going to work for you on the campaign trail or anybody?
Well, I think that this country was based on Judeo-Christian values. I mean, which one of the 10 Commandments do you not like? I mean, when you really get down to it, the Bible's a pretty good guidebook. If we live by that, I suggest to you we'd have fewer events like occurred to the policeman in Houston.
Okay, so let's talk about where you go from here. There have been chatter about staffers leaving, about payroll not being met. Where do you stand right now? How do you plan to move forward in the key places like Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina?
Well, I tell people I've been broke before, whether it's in my personal life or whether it's as the governor of Texas. We had a $10 billion budget shortfall in 2003. You cut back, you make the reductions that you need to make, and you move ahead, and that's what we're doing. Our values haven't changed, our vision for this country. You know, I really believe America is looking for a candidate who is humble, an individual who is full of humility, a person who understands that we work for the people, not the other way around. And that's why I think you see Donald Trump and Ben Carson and Carly Fiorina really resonating, is that, you know, Washington is really corrupt. People know it's corrupt. I've been fighting Washington, D.C. for 14 years. You know, I may get sucked into because I've been elected to office before, but let me tell you, I want to go to Washington, D.C. and try to make it as inconsequential in people's lives as I can.
How do you think it impacts the race, having 17 people? And, you know, a lot of folks who are GOP supporters say it's almost an embarrassment of riches for them. They feel like they've got a lot of good, strong, experienced candidates, whether it's inside Washington, outside Washington. But does it dilute the overall field and the ability to try to break through, especially when you have one person so dominating the field right now?
Well, we have one person dominating the field in 2007 and Rudy Giuliani. So this is early. But the good news is there are some really quality candidates out there. I know a lot of them very well. I mean, Bobby Jindal is one of my best friends. I mean, he is a great competitor. Carly Fiorina, I've negotiated with Carly before bringing Hewlett-Packard to Houston. I think Carly needs to be on that debate stage. I mean, this is a class act, an extraordinary individual. But the fact is, there is a lot of really good talent. I mean, 14 years of leading the 12th largest economy in the world and a job record that nobody else on the stage can even get close to, and a person who's worn the uniform of the country and been the commander-in-chief for 14 years, that's pretty good experience level. And I think both that humility and understanding that you work for the people, not the other way around. That's what's wrong with Washington. They think that we work for them. And we're sending them a clear message that we're coming for you. We're going to change Washington, D.C.
Thank you for being with me today. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on Twitter, and like my page on Facebook. I will see you next Thursday, 8:30.